Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze is sponsored by Dork Publishing, expanding minds through fantasy since 2018. Learn more at the Dork Publishing website, www.dorcpublishing.com.
I wanna visit all the places nobody goes. I wanna teach all the things that nobody knows. I wanna grow wings, leave the coop, learn to fly. Bungee jump from the tallest building in Dubai. I wanna fly around town in my UFO. I wanna eat real food, not the GMOs. I wanna make moves, call the shots like the boss. I wanna love like I never lost.
Welcome back to Desertwood Days and enter if you dare. Welcome to Desertwood Days Halloween show. Today we'd like to welcome one of our special guests. He's a comedian and a performer. Let's welcome D Bowden. Hello there.
Oh,
Trick
hello.
or treat.
Trick or treat.
Well,
How you doing?
I'm awesome. How are you today?
I am awesome.
Such a pleasure to have you here with us.
Likewise. Honor to be on the show. Honor.
So, I'm sorry, I don't have any treats to offer you, but did you bring me any treats today?
Oh man, I did not. I'm just a smile.
Okay, I'll take that.
That's it.
I'll
I'm working on trying to get a Colgate contract. For real.
You hear that?
That's it. Hey.
D Bowden.
Yes.
Comedian, performer,
Yes.
host of podcast.
Yes.
So you're doing quite a few things out
I'm
there.
working.
Yes.
24. I'm working.
Yes. Tell me, how did D Bowden get started in this industry?
True story. So I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I've been here for 4 years.
Welcome.
And my step into entertainment, it started with being an extra.
Okay.
So Bernie Mac, rest in peace, Bernie Mac,
Yeah.
he shot the movie Mr. 3000 in Miller Parkway.
Yeah.
I was a movie extra in there. I was a photographer, and I got to sit down with him for 15 minutes, one-on-one, had a talk, and he just told me about his journey in comedy and how much he put into it, and always wanted to be on the stage and make people laugh and perform, just didn't know how to go about it. Right. So when I moved out here, I just jumped out here and did it on a leap of faith, and I just literally just jumped off the porch, started doing it when I got here.
Well, that's an amazing testimony, though.
Yeah.
To be able to say that you had a sit down with Bernie Mac and he gave you some tools to get started.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, because I love me some Bernie Mac.
I do too.
Me and my daughter still watch him.
Yeah, one of the nicest guys I ever met in entertainment.
That's
really,
awesome.
Really nice guy.
Nice to hear that because, you know, you hear so much negativity about some big celebrities. So that's always nice to hear when they take time out for the people that really support them.
Absolutely,
and give them a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So, starting off, was Bernie Mac your inspiration, or
he was definitely my inspiration. But comedians coming up, listening to, a big fan of Dave Chappelle as well. Going back even with Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
The creativity and just
you naming some goats
some material.
out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
As a kid, I was a little kid. Sneaking and listening to Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy
Sneaking
shows.
and listening to something you shouldn't have been listening to.
Should have been listening to. And ultimately, them and my parents. My parents are funny. My mom is a down low comedian. She don't even know it. She's funny. She's very funny. My dad is very funny. So I think it was just installed in me, and just one of us have to get out here and try it out.
I always tell my mom. I remember as a kid when we used to have the drive-in theater.
Okay.
I told them, I remember when y'all used to sneak us into the drive-in theater to go see Shaft watching something we shouldn't have been watching in the first place.
Right, that part.
The Shaft was something else.
Oh, God, yeah, I remember watching that as older.
Yes. So you got here to Arizona. How was that transition? I mean, coming into a different culture also. How was that for you?
It was a little bit different, but I had a little history with Arizona. I used to actually work for the baseball team back at home. So I used to come here every year for spring training.
Oh, okay.
I was a bat boy for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I used to always travel. So I was familiar with the climate, and it was like, okay, do I want to go here or do I want to go to Texas? It was Texas or Phoenix, and then made the decision and came here. said, okay, I'm gonna go. And I moved here at the hottest time too.
Oh,
I moved July.
that's
never
usually
forget
when
it.
people do it.
I think you should
Right.
just get it, just step right into it, get right into it. You know, I moved here
Right.
July 31st, 2018. Never forget it. 90 degrees back at home, humidity was 60. Moved here as 114, but for some reason the 114 felt much cooler than me than the 90.
For performers and entertainers that say that there's, I want to say, you have a lot of people that say there's not much here in Arizona
Okay.
as far as say entertainment. So when you made that choice, was it because you saw something in Arizona?
No, Kathy, I can't say. I didn't know anything about the entertainment field out here at all.
Oh, okay.
Didn't have any knowledge whatsoever. But I feel for me being new to the scene, it was a good starting point, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's so much things that I'm learning, and I'm still a student. I learn something every day. I feel like you never can not learn anything. You're going to learn something every day.
I agree with that. I feel like there's something we can learn every day when we put our feet on the floor and get up to go.
God, yeah.
Yes, I totally believe it. But you know what? I don't believe that. You know that saying, oh, it ain't nothing. Those are those naysayers that sitting in a corner ain't trying to do nothing.
Right.
There is so much out here for us to learn. And you know what? And if it's not out there, create it.
That part.
So as far as creating, what has D Bowden created for himself here in Arizona?
So originally I started just doing regular open mics, right? And then I wanted to get into the podcast scene. I didn't know how to go about it. I wanted to do it, but didn't know how to go about it. I was approached by another fellow comedian at the time. His name, Kenny Martin. Shout out to Kenny Martin. We started a podcast. It was called Gray Tokens.
Okay.
Started off doing that, and then.
And what was it called? Gray Tokens?
Gray Tokens.
Gray or Great?
Gray. GRA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gray Tokens. Both guys are older guys, both token men coming from two different backgrounds. He was coming from the South, Alabama.
Yeah, I was representing that gray, huh?
Yeah. And I was coming from the Midwest, from Milwaukee, and we started off just with that content, and then that led me into coming into my next guys. I came into.
So I want you to stop there because I want to stay on this podcast for a moment. So Gray Tokens, you have two mature men.
Right.
What type of content were you guys bringing?
So for us, we were doing basically ethical questionings, backgrounds of upbringing, how two guys may have different differences, but we may also have things that's in common as well. He was coming from the South, coming from a military background. Father is a retired officer. He was a former athlete. I was a semi-athlete, played a little bit of ball, came from the Midwest. And you know what? We found out we had a lot of things in common, and we found out a lot of things we didn't have in common. So that would be our material, you know. I found out things like one thing he told me that was so funny. He said the local gas station, they had a food buffet in. And they can get gas and they food out of it.
Okay.
So I was like, so you can pull up to pump 6 and say 20 on pump 6 and a buffet to go. He was like, yeah. I was like, wow.
My goodness.
That's a small town.
Right.
I'm getting gas and my food out the same place. That's
get it all at one place.
Right. I said, well, I guess I was improvising. You know, you made it work, but things like that.
So did you guys find that you were having many mature audiences, or was it a combination?
It was a combination. We predominantly was just two comedians just trying to figure out how to go about it. We would have all the local comedians come on as guests, talk about their bringing, what got them into the scene, their fears, what they feel is the good, the bad of being in it. And that's what we started off at.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is this podcast still active?
That podcast is no longer active.
Okay.
But I still have content that's up, so you can go on YouTube and pull it up.
Okay. So you did the podcast, and from once you stopped doing that, what was the next?
The next one came another podcast.
Okay.
Which is the one that I've been on going on 2 years now.
Okay. And what's the name of this podcast?
This one is called Pot Roast Podcast and the Funny Bone Lounge, which just started up in May.
Okay.
So
how's that been going so far for you?
It's been going cool. It's hard. It is hard. It's now that I'm official code to an own show, right? And just like you have your show, you got to come up with content, come up with guests.
Right.
That's the frustrating part. Oh, I got this person come in, and last minute, oh, I got this booked. So I think that's the more challenging part. Coming up with material for my comedy show isn't. I like to be organic and let guys and women just come on there and just be themselves, you know.
Right.
We do a lot of improving on the show, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
We've done like Family Feuds, Price is Right, Jeopardy, little mini skits and ask comedians that talk
I
about
like
things.
that.
Yeah.
Because when I first started with season 1, I would have my notes and
Right.
questions I wanted to ask, but I felt like that was more stressful for me
Right.
than for us to sit here and just have a
Right. Just a regular
conversation.
talk, you
Because
know.
I want to know about D
about
Bowden,
you.
so I'm going to come up with these things.
Right.
So I felt that doing it organically was better for me
Yeah.
this season also.
I agree too. I feel like it's only so much you can script and write.
Right.
And then eventually it'll start being draining on you because you're
Mhm.
overthinking things. I got to come up with this type of material for this set and this set. And you're like, you know what? Let me just look at how these people are. I don't know them. They don't know me. Let me dig a little bit more and find out who they are as a person.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to find out a little bit more about you right after this commercial break. Welcome back to Desertwood Days, and I am here with Mr. D Bowden. So, D, we were talking about your podcast. So the one, the Gray
The Great Tokens.
Tokens.
Mhm.
Okay, that one has ended, but it's still out on YouTube
Correct.
for our audience or anyone that wants to check them out. But you started a new one in May. But did you say was that 1 or 2?
That was one. What happened is I was brought on as a guest to a current show, which is called Pot Roast Podcast.
Okay.
That was an up and going podcast that's been going on through Arizona maybe the last 6-7 years.
Oh, okay.
My guys over there at Central Station Studios, shout out to them for that. They brought me on as a guest. It was an episode I did. They liked it. We had some really good reviews. Ended up bringing me on the show again.
Oh, okay.
They liked me. They sat around. It was like, you know what? Maybe we should make this guy one of the co-hosts on the show as well.
Okay.
And started being a co-host on Pop Roast Podcast. And then we branched off. And then you said, you know what, Darnell, D, you're the comedian on our podcast. Maybe you should try to do a little podcast on the side for the comedy side. Okay. Started that up in May, and that's the Funny Bone Lounge.
Okay. So are you still part of Pot Roast?
I'm still part of Pot Roast. Pot Roast is shot every Thursday,
Okay.
and the Funny Bone Lounge will be now shot every Wednesday. We were doing Fridays, but the Friday, like I said, the scheduling, people got shows.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what?
I understand.
Yeah, we're
that.
gonna have to start and change this date up. So now we're
Right.
going to Wednesday nights.
So what can we find? What can we look for on the Pot Roast first?
Pot Roast is more like just like your boys club, you know, you're sitting around, you're talking crazy.
I don't know what
You
the
know,
boys
it's just like the
do.
girl. It's like when the girls be in the shop, y'all getting your nails done, your hair done. You heard about what happened yesterday, so we really try to touch up on the current things that's going on in the community,
Oh, okay.
or whatever may be currently going on in music with hip hop, sports. Not too
Okay.
much of sports, but mostly hip hop and current events locally. What's going on in AZ,
Oh,
or
okay.
social media little things that may
Okay.
be what you call buzzing at the moment. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we've talked about your podcast and
Mhm.
things that you're doing with that, but you're also a stand-up comedian.
Yes.
Okay. So how do you describe your type of comedy?
Material. I am. It is so hard because I get different comments from after shows. Some people, oh man, you kind of remind me of Eddie Griffin. I feel that I am just a hands-on comedian. I don't write. I will say that. I always tell people I don't write jokes. I have my own preference about writing jokes. I feel if you write jokes, and example, I may write jokes for a 20, 30-year-old crowd, and I get out to my show, and I got 40 to 60-year-olds. So now what you got to do? You got to improvise.
So you improvise every time you go to a show?
I pretty much do. I do have certain
Okay,
things that
now.
I'll talk about. Like I'll put bulletins up.
So what do you do? Okay, you get out there in the show, you
Mhm.
see Kathy sitting there in the
Mhm.
audience, people like me.
hmm
So what do? Do you look around and see what's out there? How do you decide on what you're going to talk about?
I feel I got three main formulas. I feel there's three topics in comedy you can talk about that will be majority relatable to people. Number one, work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people can relate to work. Number
Right.
two is parenting.
Right.
Number three is your upbringing, because people are always interested on how you was brought up. No one can tell your story better than you about your upbringing.
Right.
And some people are intrigued about that, and sometimes they feel relatable. It makes sense.
Uh-huh.
You may have been raised on certain things that I was raised on, and that can be funny because it brings back those old childhood memories of,
Right.
things to that
Isn't
nature.
it something that people are so interested in knowing about each other?
It is.
I mean, you know what? It's no different than animals.
Hmm.
Because, you see dogs that walk up to each other. They want to sniff them and smell them. They want to know about that other
Right,
dog.
right.
But we're no different.
Right.
We're intrigued by each
We
other.
are.
So, is there anything that you won't do? Or that's just a no?
No. I pretty much touch everything. I've done clean comedy. I've have shows where I did it for church events,
Mm-hmm.
uh, LGBTQ community. I do shows for everybody. I feel laughter is.
Laughter is laughter.
It is,
It's
and
good
everyone
for
can
the
relate to. It's
soul.
good for the soul.
Right.
Everybody needs some laughter, especially
Right.
now. We got so much going on.
That
bad.
is
Oh my
true.
God.
I totally believe
So
that.
you try to make a good thing out of the bad.
Right, right. So, you're doing your podcast. You're doing the stand up.
Mhm.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, I want to actually be touring.
Oh,
I want to get out more and start trying to test the waters in the little independent movies and whatnot. I want to shoot. I want to be in some movies.
you want to be in some movies?
Yeah, I want to do some little scenes.
Come
in
on,
some
let's do
movies.
something together.
I'm with it.
Yeah, let's do
I'm with it.
something
I want to
together.
get in that, and I want to start getting back more in my community.
Good for you.
And working on doing more with the motivational speaking too. If that makes sense.
So, do you think? And this is something you never hear people talking about because
Mhm.
I don't feel like there's age limit for anything.
No.
Do you feel like for a stand-up comedian is the time for you to just lay it down?
I would say no because stand-up comedy to me is one of the hardest fields of entertainment. I say that for one reason. Actors, you get scripts, so you get time to memorize it, look over it, get into character. Musicians, you get to go into an intimate setting, create something out of nothing, and you get fan based off of whatever reacts. Stand-up comedy, you are just put on a scene with nothing, a microphone, and you're told to make people laugh. You have no background on anybody. It's right then and there.
Unless you're writing your own stuff.
It's still you don't know your fans, so you're freestyling.
Right.
It's almost like in the rap game, you're
Right.
freestyling because you don't know these people at all. You can write all day, but I'm just make us laugh. You don't even know how they're gonna react,
Yeah.
and that's scary and it's hard.
Or how that person's feeling for that
Right.
day, right?
Right.
Or if you're gonna offend someone because
All the
of the
time.
material that you're.
All the time.
All right.
I feel like that's kind of one of the issues that we have now in comedy is people hold comedians up to a different statute. Like I'm a minister or
Right.
I'm not here to do any of that. I'm just here to make you laugh.
Well, you know what? Since you mentioned minister, I hear people say that. Well, they're this and they're supposed. But you know what? We're all human.
Right.
They may be their title is a minister, but they're still human. I mean,
That
we
part.
all make mistakes.
Yeah.
Or I mean, what's to say is a mistake. Okay, we have to choose to take offense to things.
Exactly.
Okay, if this comedian, he's this type of, he's not a clean comedian.
Hmm.
Why would you go see it if you don't like
Right.
someone that curse?
Right.
Or
and you didn't see that back in the early '80s and '90s. Like these comedians back then, you could say whatever you want, no censorship
They're not
whatsoever.
going to a Richard Pryor concert.
Oh my goodness! And now it kind of limits your craft, and it puts you in an uncomfortable position where you go, man, I really can't speak my mind. And regardless of what it is, I learned in this field is you're not going to be able to please everybody.
Right.
So stick to your craft.
Right.
You're not going to please everybody. Everybody's going to have something to say at any given time. No matter how much good you do in the world, you do something bad, they will highlight that like it is who you are.
Right.
You got to learn how to put that in the back and just go, you know what, stick to what you like.
All right. So speaking of Arizona comedy community, what would you like to see different in that?
In the community
In
here.
the community of that.
The Arizona community is, I don't know, it's kind of like, I feel like it's like being a rapper now. It is. It's competitive. I like it. I love the competitiveness, right? And it's so open. It's so open. You got everybody's doing their thing, and I just feel like at times I think more support sometimes
Okay.
to the comedy community in a whole. I think we support one another to so much, but the mass of people to support the community of comedy here.
And you know what? That's we say that in
Mhm.
film. We say that in theater. I think that's all over fashion.
Oh God,
That's
yeah,
all over.
right, right.
Yeah. So, what was I gonna? I just lost train of thought. Who- I'm gonna skip past that. Any new projects coming up?
I do. I have a show I have a show tonight.
Okay.
Okay. It is a 70s, 80s, 90s dress theme.
Okay.
So
I'm dressed perfect for
yes,
that.
yes, yes. You dig it, Jai girl, get it. So I have a show tonight, and then I will be doing it next following week. I'll be doing my consistent 2 podcasts. Wednesday we'll be starting up the new day of the Funny Bone Lounge.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check that out.
And
I just thought of my question.
Oh, okay.
I was going to ask you. You know, with all the when we with the COVID and everything
Mhm.
started going to social media, how did that affect you?
major, just because you was hitting all the local scenes and
Mhm.
doing the open mics, and when that happened, I was right buzzing a little bit. You know, I was getting into my routine. I had a couple of spots I was going, and then that hit, and it was like, wow, what are we gonna do, right? So it was like,
Did you get into
I
the
didn't-
doing the videos on
didn't.
Instagram
didn't.
and
I just
No.
focused on doing a 9 to 5 and shut down for a little bit.
Okay.
I didn't improvise like other the TikToks and all that. I was like
Uh-huh.
and
so you didn't get
I
into
didn't
that?
do it, and I'm getting into it now because that
Okay.
is so important.
Yeah.
The networking.
So where can our audience find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at D Bowden 2018. You can find me on TikTok.
On TikTok now.
No, you
huh?
can find me on TikTok, D Bowden TV. You can find me on YouTube at D Bowden TV, Pot Roast Podcast, the Funny Bone Lounge as well. And I also do an open mic that I host every Sunday. Didn't say that earlier. I host an open mic every Sunday down at one of those spots, Coop's Bar and Grill,
Okay.
every Sunday, 6 to 8.
Okay.
Come on down there.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us here today. It was such a
Blessings.
pleasure to meet you. And thank you for joining us today here at Desertwood Days, and we'll catch you next time.
Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze was sponsored by Dork Publishing. Visit them at dorkpublishing.com.